Hey guys, welcome back to another fall tutorial. Today we're going to be working on this simple beginner-friendly tumbler tutorial. We are just going to put some glitter on a cup. We're going to use some semi-transparent vinyl and then add a little texture with some regular vinyl. If you want to see how this is done, stick around and I will show you. We're starting out with a 24-ounce travel mug from the Tipsy Magnolia, and you are going to use whatever color palette your heart desires. And I'm just going to go around. I don't have any set design in my mind. I'm just kind of placing colors in a diagonal pattern as I see fit. Whatever I think looks good next to each other. I try not to make, certain colors too big or too overpowering, and then you're basically just going to lay those paints on until you get a good blend and you're happy with where your colors are laying. Once the paint's dry, we're going to go in with the epoxy method. I did add a little bit more epoxy than normal just because I knew we were going to be working with a lot of chunky glitters, and I wanted to make sure that all of my glitters laid down as flat as possible. If you use a little bit more epoxy than normal, it has more of a chance to kind of sink into the glitter and it lays more flat to the cup, which is going to prevent any excess coats of epoxy from being applied. So next we're going to start with the chunkiest glitters first. This is Meyer's 2.0 from Peachy Olive Glitters. And I will tell you guys that if I were to go back, I would not use this glitter. I thought it fit well with the color combinations. And I just didn't love how it flowed with the rest of the palette once I got it on, but I put it on first, so it was a little too late. You'll see me kind of backtrack, and I put Macchiato over top of that, the Meyer's 2.0, just to kind of blend the color palette in a little bit better. So you can't even really tell, but if you're, replicating these colors or this color palette, I would maybe do a little trial run with the glitters next to each other just to make sure that you're happy with it. So we're going to keep laying these down. We're going to do light coverage, and this one is Plant Lady. This is actually a custom mix from Peachy made by myself, and I don't know if I ever showcased this, but it's like a year old maybe. I know I've used it, I just don't think I've actually put it in a tutorial. So if you like it, it is available on the website. And we're just going to fill in light-handed. Like I said, we're not going full coverage because we want to be able to blend the colors. If you're going in full coverage first time around, you're not going to have the opportunity to blend the colors going back once you get everything in place. So we're just going to keep tapping off any excess and moving on. Chunkiest cut to finest cut. This is Hayride from Chase Rae. And then I'm going to bring that into the Cider from Chase Rae, which is the chunky kind of coppery color, and just blend it a little bit more. All of these mixes have both chunky and fine in them. Both companies do a really great job of making sure that you have all different variations in cut sizes so you have full coverage. So it wasn't a huge, deal that I had to go back over them because it was pretty much full coverage the first time. But just make sure that there's no paint peeking through on the bottom. And then this is where I'm covering up the Meyer's 2.0 and checking over everything, making sure there's no paint showing through. We're gonna let that sit on the drying rack. I did pat down my glitter just to make sure that everything laid flat. We didn't have any pokey bits. And then we're gonna let it dry overnight, and we'll go in with our epoxy and start with our vinyl. Spray sealing these is completely optional. I did just out of habit, but you definitely don't have to since it's kind of just a hodgepodge of glitters, and they're not, it's not like a striped cup or anything where you don't want straight glitters. So if you want to, you can. If not, just go directly in with epoxy. I went in with 2 coats of the Flynn Sisters epoxy, and then I made sure to sand after the first coat, and then on my second coat, that lessened the amount of pokey pieces that were sticking up. Because we're using semi-transparent, I've told you guys this 100 times, I feel like a broken record, we want to make sure that there are no sand marks on the epoxy or on the tumbler before you lay down the vinyl. because it has that kind of clear cast decal or backing between the elements on the vinyl design, if there is sanded marks underneath that, your epoxy won't have a chance to get underneath the vinyl to shine that surface back up. So we just want to make sure that that is going to be completely glossy, so once we coat over the vinyl, the glitter underneath it is going to be glossy as well. So I'm going to kind of split this up into chunks, and I did the first round in kind of a big portion, and then I cut around the handle as close as possible, making sure that I didn't have any like half leaves or anything in there. And then I just cut out the individual leaves and hand placed them so they weren't kind of going over top of the handle and creating any like bumps or anything, or there wasn't like vinyl poking out over the handle where it was curved. And so you're just going to fill around that. Now, of course, if you're using a straight tumbler, I have to make things difficult as usual. You can definitely just use the hinge method and push it on with a squeegee. You don't have to do any sort of like finagling like I've had to do here. So I just like to make things difficult. When I think of fall, I think of handled mugs. I don't know why, or if I'm the only one, but that's why I chose this curved design. But if you want to make things easy, just go for the straight tumbler and just press it on. Side note, and apologies in advance, I do have some tutorials coming out where I use BAMF vinyl. I have a whole slew of vinyl from BAMF Custom Creations, and she just posted that she is shutting down temporarily. I don't know any of the details. I don't know when she's coming back, so you will have to sub these leaves out for something else if you want to recreate this design. If you don't have these leaves on hand already, I just don't know, when she's going to be printing things. So I believe as of last Saturday, she shut off shipping or shut off ordering. But I would definitely check her website as well as her Facebook group for updates regarding coming back to business. So sorry for that. I didn't know that was going to happen. I just kind of plan out my content weeks in advance and wasn't really planning for that to happen. So it is kind of what it is, but we will push through. So I'm just going to keep going around the tumbler and laying down around that curve. You'll see that I did the top half, and I made sure not to put any big kind of pieces or bundles of leaves over the curve because I didn't want my vinyl to pucker up. And so I just kind of broke it into two halves. I'm going to lay a bigger portion down on that bottom half as well, and then I'm going to go back in and I'm going to fill in those empty spaces with individual leaves just like I did around or underneath the handle. And then we're going to fill that up, and I'm so sorry, I don't know what happened. The gold portion of the leaves that I did, my phone was like kind of dying, but I had it plugged in. I don't know if it just burned through the battery too fast while I was applying those gold textured leaves on over top of the vinyl, but it didn't record. So I stood up and I was looking at it and I realized I didn't record it. However that happened, I don't know, but I showed you guys kind of what it looked like after it was applied. So I just went over the semi-transparent leaves, these colored leaves that I'm applying now, with the Teckwrap textured gold metallic vinyl, and I cut them between 1 inch and 2.5 inches, just in various sizes. The file is from VMD. It's a Vanessa Davis design, and I will link her Etsy in the description box if you guys want that. If you're in her Patreon, those files are free, available for you to download, but we're just going to lay those out over top of the printed vinyl. I did not put a coat of epoxy between the two. I did go over it with my hands just to make sure everything was pressed down flat. Those gold vinyls do have a lot of detail in them, so I just wanted to make sure everything was flush on the cup. I put it on my turner with a coat of polyacrylic just to make sure all of that vinyl stayed down flat, nothing was going to lift under the epoxy. And after that was dry to the touch, it takes about 30 minutes. Of course, that's going to vary depending on your climate and temperature in your house and whatever. But after about 30 minutes for me, it is dry. There are no milky looking surfaces. You want to make sure that you don't have any of the polyacrylic kind of muddled up into a like milky white puddle, because that will show through under epoxy. If you put epoxy over it while it's wet, it's not ever going to dry and you'll have kind of a foggy surface. So after that, I put one final coat of Flynn Sisters regular setting epoxy on it, and it completely covered both vinyl layers. Didn't have to go in with anything else. If you want to go in and add maybe some glitter into like the top layers of it for some more depth and dimension, you can definitely do that. But for this tutorial, this is the end result. I hope you guys love it, and I will see you guys next weekend.